Here's more Mike Buck on 690 The Answer.
Oh, quack, quack indeed. Moving like a disco duck. Okay, it is Minority Monday, as you know. And joining us in the house is Beth Fukumoto Chang, representing the minority. And maybe even a smaller minority than I thought because of all of the stuff that's going on. Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, let's get the 800-pound gorilla that's in the corner of the room. Are you a Republican?
Yes.
Okay. Are you running again in your district as a Republican?
Yes, I am.
Do you anticipate becoming a Democrat anytime soon?
I don't have any plans.
Is it even on your radar? Have you ever thought about it?
Yeah, I don't think anybody that's been elected has not thought about it. That would be my honest answer.
I'm glad to hear it honest. Yeah. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to the audience earlier, and I said that, my propensity is to have the ins on. And we extend an olive branch, and we extend an invitation every year to both parties. The Republican Party, of course, is always because of, talk radio is pretty conservative. Yep. They like the opportunity to speak with this crowd. But we also do the same thing, as you know. I have Tulsi Tuesday. Whoever's in deserves, to be on the air. And whoever wants to be in deserves it as well. I think that right now, the first thing that has to happen is, whether it's the Republican Party or now even the Democrat Party, I want to know, if I signed on as a Republican, and you as my, as a Republican representative, do I have to follow a set of rules to be a Republican? Or do you? As an elected Republican, do you have to follow a hard, fast set of rules, or can you be you?
I became a Republican because I believed that it was the party that lets you be who you are and best represent your district as you need to, because that's what we're supposed to do as representatives. I think there is definitely a segment in our party that doesn't believe that anymore, that thinks that we need to stick to a hard and fast set of rules and a hard and fast set of ideals. And I don't think that has to be what being a Republican means.
Well, we often hear the term reaching across the desk to the opposition. And that usually means when somebody writes a piece of legislature that is sponsored by more than just their party, it's, wow, this is a breakthrough.
Right.
I mean, that's not supposed to happen. Isn't it true that most of what you do should be nonpartisan, that most of what any representative does is, all right, what does my constituency want?
Yes.
And then keeping that in mind, what do I think that we need? In other words, when you're a leader, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think, this is what I always say is the word compromise is different from the word compromised. And people seem to attack when you work across the aisle. We get attacked for being compromised with a D, but it's compromising. And kindergartners learn that compromising is a good thing. I don't know why it's not good in politics.
Okay, we're going to talk specific. There's a group calling itself HIRA.
Yes.
That has decided that you are a Democrat.
Yes.
Bob McDermott, a representative who has issues with HIRA, and yet has been paired with HIRA on a number of occasions.
Yes.
He says that you're a Democrat. Sent out a memo, which I think, unfortunately for him, got out because, it sort of says, why are you, what does this mean and what are you saying? Put personal feelings aside. How did you feel as a representative when this attack started?
It's increasingly hostile, and I find that somewhat disturbing. I think, I wish that we could just respect everybody's diversity in our caucus, and I think that's the sort of the intolerance that a lot of this shows is super problematic, and I think it's problematic for the party. I'd like to see us get back to a place where we're a big tent, and that's my sort of at a 10,000 foot level.
I want you to know that I was honored to be asked to be the MC at the Lincoln dinners I've done before, where a bunch of people get together to I guess renew their values, and what they really want. And I made a plea at that, but to anybody in the room that knew the people that were in HIRA,
you did,
to come into the tent and say, hey, look, we have a lot of core things that we agree on. Let's find out what we don't agree on and deal with it. Instead, it seems like certain members of their group, one of it is actually used profanities about me online.
Yep.
Which I don't understand because look I have no vested interest in anything. I'm not an elected official. Right. I'm a registered Republican, so I can vote, but I vote for Democrats sometimes. So I'm to a point where I reached out, and instead of getting somewhere, it seemed like whatever wedge is got bigger. Do you feel the same way? Is it like unfixable?
I do. I do feel that it's unfixable. I don't think the party is unfixable, but I think that this sort of the schism that we're seeing is something that we're going to have to fight through, and what unfortunately it's become competing ideologies of the way forward for the party. I
think that one of the things that I'm confused about are candidates. I wonder how many candidates are proudly carrying that Hira flag, and I don't see any. I mean, maybe there are some, but isn't the most difficult thing? This came out at the Lincoln. I know this comes out in the Republican caucus. Isn't it hard to go out and recruit and get somebody to see where we need to be or where the party needs to be? Yeah,
I think one of the biggest recruiting tools, it should be that you have a brand, a Republican brand of some kind. For me, that brand when I was recruited was diversity. You can be who you want to be without getting your strings pulled. I don't know what that brand's going to be this year. That makes it hard to recruit candidates.
You were compared in the news in these stories as being identical to Aaron Ling Johansson, who did change parties.
And Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah. And you know, there's another thing, too. And I remember when Senator Mike Gabbard chose. And I can tell you that, and I've known others, that have changed in both directions. Frank Fosse, you know, and others. And usually it's out of frustration for an individual. But you have been accused now in writing by a fellow caucus member that you might even switch before right now.
Right.
Where did this come from, do you think?
As I said, there's been increasing hostility. I think it's been building up over a few years. There was frustration. I'm sure that I didn't leave with Aaron because it would have been better for, as I said, there are competing ideologies in our caucus. Their specific ideology would have won out if I had just left. And I think that's what I think some part of them would like me to just leave, because I'm presenting an alternative viewpoint of what the party can be. I wouldn't be doing that if I was going to just take off. What would be the point of fighting for something?
The first thing that I thought of, folks, was why would Beth delay the departure? I mean, but I understand, and I spoke candidly a long time ago with Mike Gabbard, and sort of a little bit with Aaron Ling Johansson, who was branded immediately a turncoat.
Yeah.
Well, he just changed.
Right.
I mean, you know, that's one good thing about America, right?
Right.
What about the number of people that asked you and that actually changed party affiliation so they could vote in the caucus? You know?
Absolutely.
And look at how many the Democrat Party today is saying that they've got 7,500 new members.
Right.
Certainly not 7,500 Hillary supporters.
No.
We're talking about 7,500 people that would probably be a part-time Democrat for a while to vote for Sanders.
Right. And what I find somewhat hypocritical in Hawaii, in a state like Hawaii, it's such a blue state. When we go door to door and we ask people to vote for us, we say, look at the person, not the party.
Yeah.
So to be elected as a Republican and then to be told, no, you're your party, you're not anything else, you're just your party, is somewhat hypocritical to me. I think we're Americans first, and that should be our identity.
You know, I want to agree because the last couple of days I've been playing the sound bites of Hillary. And Hillary gets to a point when she says the word Republican, it sounds like profanity.
It's with disgust.
Yeah, it
right?
really is. And it was like, how can you possibly be a Republican?
Right.
And then in the next sentence, she says, we all got to work together.
Right. And you just can't do that.
Yeah. When you guys got together as a caucus, and I don't want to say shop the angles, but shop the angles on how do we get some Democrats to agree with some of the things we're doing. Didn't that happen? And doesn't it always happen?
I can't say that it happened with all seven of us. No, not this year, at least.
Which is kind of a shame.
Yeah.
Because 7 out of is out of 51 or whatever is a pretty small minority.
Well, and I'd like to say, in a perfect world, you're playing offense and defense, right? You have your defensive team in football, and they're trying to stop bad stuff. And you have your offensive team. You're trying to move stuff forward, good stuff. And I would love if the caucus worked like that, but I think we have one group in the caucus that thinks that we should be 100% oppositional all the time, and make the Democrats feel pain, right? Yeah. And to me, that's just not how I think we get things done. And both are legitimate opinions, and I wish they could both coexist.
A lot of people think that the Republicans are there to make the Democrats not be able to spend money. I mean, that's been sometimes the thought. I've never agreed with that because
Right.
I think money needs to be spent
Sometimes.
in certain places.
Yeah, sometimes.
Do you think we didn't ever get a chance to do this, and I haven't had a chance to talk with Bob McDermott, but I do know that Bob McDermott was very passionate about a school construction project
Yeah.
on Maui to the
Yep.
tune of $30-odd million.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand that because in his district there's a school that's swollen.
Yes.
How does that get addressed?
So, and this is the thing that's missing in this discussion. In my district, there's actually a school that's still on multi-track.
Mm-hmm.
We need one more building, just like Campbell High School does. And it's $35 million, just
Wow.
like Bob's building. And for me, we can get it incrementally. If it's just part of the money this year and part of the money next year, I get that we have different priorities. And I'm willing to work with the Democrats to get whatever we can to make sure that my school eventually will get off multi-track.
There was an accusation that this whole school on Maui
Right.
was some sort of payback for Roz Baker. Do you
Right.
buy into that? I mean, can anybody on a neighbor island swing that much weight that they can get that kind of money just because?
No, I think because the governor can just not release the money too, right? That's something here is even if the legislature passes something as a political favor, which I don't think that's what this is, but say it was, the governor could still not release the money at the request of the DOE. The DOE could choose not to build it. There are a lot of options here to prevent that.
It seems like we're getting a little bit of feedback, and folks, if you need or if you have something to say, I'd like you to say it by calling us. But I do have this one that. And I make an exception only because I remember this. The late Lowell Kalapa voiced some concerns about the direction the party was going into with regards to spending.
Yeah.
And it was said at that time and used for others that sometimes that some of you have been, and you specifically, have been accused of joining with the opposition. But to what gain, I don't know. How do you address that when somebody says, "Hey, Beth, it looks like you want what they want"? How do you explain that?
So this is what I always ask people. If you have a seat at the table and Democrats are willing to work with you and you're able to make something less bad. That's when you have 7 people in 7 people out of 51.
So actually, sometimes what you're saying less bad is good.
Right.
I mean, bad, unchecked bad is very bad.
Unchecked bad is very bad. And so maybe we can get in there and we can say, hey, maybe we can lessen this a certain amount. Maybe we can lessen this tax increase or lessen this spending. But once you do that, can you vote no on that compromise at the end of the day? No, you can't. That's not being a fair partner. If you're going to ask somebody to do you a favor or even to work with you on compromising, then you can't just turn around and slap them in their face.
Well,
right?
when you were a cub, when you first got into that, you didn't know that the art of deals was the art of deals.
Certainly not when I was running for office. No.
I mean, this is the thing that I think is telling. I got a lot of email, and folks, we're just not going to do that because only because this is sensitive. There was one thing that was said in an email that I think Bob McDermott put out internally, and it like all email, ask Hillary, they can go kind of cuckoo, right? And
Right.
And things can happen.
An email's never secret.
Yeah, and since that's the case, I think the concept of taking out of context is really used. You were telling me off the air that's kind of what happened here in the respect that you are a Republican. You just pulled papers to run as a Republican, but you were asked the question, does this mean that you would never consider changing? And you said something to the effect of, you can't, to be honest, nobody can never say never.
Right. I said I can't promise I never would.
And now it's being taken as you're jumping right
as
this
I'm
minute.
jumping right now.
Yeah, right before the election.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's fully generational, but I actually think more if anybody was really honest with themselves, how tied are they to their political party? And is that a good thing? Like I said, we always ask Democrats that are voting for us in elections, please look at the person, not the party.
Here's what I'm worried about. If you take a look at nationally, the third party concept has never made it. The closest it really ever came was with Ross Perot, another very rich guy that failed miserably. But doesn't it show you, if you take a look at the way the government is perceived, in Washington, D.C., a 10% approval rating? That means 90% disapprove.
Yeah.
So to me, a third party is viable now because everybody's upset with both parties.
Yeah, I think, I've been reading a lot about Abraham Lincoln lately, and we all know Abraham Lincoln helped found the Republican Party, but it was a third party concept. That was the last time it worked, right? Is Abraham Lincoln was a third party president. He left his old party that no longer fit, and he formed a new one, the Republican Party.
You know what I think is hysterical is to take a look at this founder of the party, and you take a look at Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
He was kind of a rough guy.
Yes.
Abe Lincoln, he was he was irritable.
Right. Yes, he was. Yes.
Why does it take that? The other day, there was a news story out, and it was mentioned also in this memo by Representative McDermott and many others, that he sort of got very frustrated on the floor and said some things that would probably he'd like to probably vacuum back, but he didn't.
No.
He did not.
and
you actually thought at one point in time that Bob was angry enough that he might throw something or hit somebody.
Yeah, he definitely was angry enough, and there were people on the floor that were, I think, concerned for safety. Yeah.
Isn't it a hard thing not to be sometimes so angry?
Sure.
I mean, when you're so convinced that you are on the righteous path.
Yeah. We have tough jobs at the legislature.
Yeah.
I don't think that excuses all behavior, but in his defense, we have tough jobs.
Somebody sent me an MP3 and actually a video of the Japanese legislature. I mean, they fight. They fist fight on the floor, and
Italian too, I think.
Yeah, and they don't interrupt them.
Right.
I mean, and I think where the other one is, and I'm sure you've seen this, Parliament.
Yes.
Is so over the top. You can't believe that people would say something so biting to another person.
Right. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that's got to be bothersome?
It can be, it can get heated. But I think, at the end of the day, we live in Hawaii, and I think that's not what people are looking for from us. I don't see us turning into British Parliament.
While you have that attitude, and I appreciate it, I think people need a flair of how difficult it is to get the job done with all these extreme distractions.
It's difficult. Politics these days is difficult in general. I think we're seeing that in the presidential election. It's hard to actually move practical solutions to things because people are always picking them apart from the extreme rights and lefts.
Yeah. I look at this thing, they call it the Pinocchio measure, or how many Pinocchios did somebody get? Is part of this maybe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm asking you, we are a very small community here. And things go around here at the speed of light, just like they do anywhere now because of the internet and social media. If there was anything that you could take back of recent, would there be anything?
Yes. Of the last week, I think when I specifically on the floor said that I thought that Representative McDermott was picking the wrong place to have the discussion about the capital improvement projects in the schools. I shouldn't have, as the leader, directly pointed him out. I shouldn't have singled him out. That was the extent. It wasn't a very loud criticism, but I think that's my mistake in the last week.
Here's what I've understood to be the rule in the past. When somebody says something, they say it. And then the leadership would go around and say, I know that you're impassioned about this, but I need to do a whole ton of damage control. Right. Is there anything that we can change? Is there anything that we can soften? Is there anything we can do to make this go away?
Right. I think I'm hearing the question of unity a lot from the party, and from leaders within the party. How are we going to unify the Republican caucus? But I think at the end of the day, if you're having to choose between unity just for unity's sake isn't going to move us forward. Like I said, we've set out, and I've set out as a leader, a very specific path that I think will help grow the caucus and help grow the party. People disagree with me. I can agree with them 100% and we can unify, but we may still be irrelevant, or we can go the other way and people will be mad.
Before we go to the traffic break, let me ask you this. Somebody pointed out to me the other day, look, Tulsi Gabbard is getting a tremendous amount of kudos for being able on the national level to work with Republicans. She's actually penned some stuff. She certainly took a left turn from the Democrat, leadership in Hawaii to Washington in resigning from the Democrat National Committee and throwing her support to Bernie Sanders. That certainly makes her a lone wolf among the four delegates, right? Some are saying, well, look, maybe Beth is a Republican version of Tulsi. In other words, I am a Democrat, or in this case, you are a Republican, but I need to work with the others, so I gotta bite the bullet sometimes.
Yes, and I will always unapologetically pick my community and America and Hawaii over my party.
Yeah,
just like Tulsi.
Yeah, and I think in the final end run, that's what your constituents want to hear. When we come back, we got to talk about what's going on in the legislature.
Yes.
Okay? More coming up with Beth Tang and I right after this on The Answer, the Mike Buck Show on a Monday morning with Malin Moore in traffic.
Stuck?
It's called Follow the Sheep. It's Follow the Sheep. Well, that's one thing that a lot of people want to do. They get in lockstep and they do what they're told. That's why the group, the Hawaii group, is backing Hillary Clinton, with the exception of Tulsi Gabbard. All right, let's put that behind us. One of the things that Beth Fukumoto Chang and I talk about every Monday is Minority Monday and the bills. We are past the point of no return for some of the bills. But some of the stuff is getting heated up, and I do know that there's still an awful lot of interest, Beth, on those bills that have been re-massaged, including some of the ones from the neighbor islands, on getting an increase in the GET, and it still is a big worry by a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Anything going on this week that we ought to know about?
Not regarding the GET. I think I really believe that most of the tax increases in the House are just going to be dead this year. Same with motor vehicle tax increases, a few of those other bills that we saw come out of the Senate. I don't see them moving forward in the House.
Let's talk about something that's on everybody's mind, and that is that, it's all about the kids. It's all about education. Right. It's all about schools. Heaven knows you're going through a thing with school construction. Let's talk about the burdensome, unwieldy opportunity, according to the HSTA guy. Well, let's just put up the GE tax. Right. That, to me, was as close as it's going to get. And it didn't look like it was going to happen.
It doesn't look like it's going to happen. Died in both houses. Yeah.
What people need to know is, all these bills are in there to increase taxes. How many bills are in there to reduce spending? And I don't think there are any. Not too many. I think some of them, most of the spending happens in the budget. So you see some reductions there. In certain departments, but overall government spending is going up. Let's make sure that people understand what happens. It is the administration that is tasked with the responsibility of coming up with the budget. Yes. Okay, and from what I've been told, and maybe this is layman's terms, but from what I've been told, it's because they ultimately are responsible for the departments. Yes. And their spending. Yes. So administration of the budget. Yeah. So what happens is the administrator. The governor would put out to the departments, things aren't looking so good. Right. Give me a budget that shows a 3%, 5% decrease. Yeah. Or we're collecting a lot of money and we've hamstrung you guys before. Let's get a little bold. Spend a little, maybe 5% more. Right. Is that how it works? Yes. So each department lists what their priorities are, what they need, and normally it's needs, right? Yeah. Then the governor goes through, decides what he's actually going to propose to the legislature. And then the House is the first to look through it. And then we go through line by line and we decide what the departments have to justify what they need. That's what somebody wanted to know. And since it's not a political question, it says, would you please ask Beth to explain line item veto? Okay, so line item vetoes would be at the end of the year when the governor actually gets the budget. He can veto one line out of the budget or one line out of a bill or something else and let everything else pass. Right. Now, if he does that, let's explain what it takes to undo a line item veto. So it takes let's say that I'm the governor and the legislator wanted to increase this or decrease that, and I said no. Right. So we have 10 days before the end of session to get bills to the governor for him to veto. If he vetoes something in those 10 days, then the legislature does not have to come back into special session to override the veto. Otherwise, we have to come back into special session. But if we want to override something, it takes 2/3 of the House and Senate to override it. What I always get a kick out of is when they say, well, we're going to have a special session. And then somebody says, well, we can't afford it. For that meaning is, I think people also need to know, when something is, quote, dead, it really isn't until the very end. Never, not until the very, very end. Yeah. Okay, so those that are concerned about, at least at this point, the GE tax. Keep an eye on it. Yeah, but that's not front burner. No. What is front burner, however, is the ongoing costs of administering things like homelessness.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, the state is looking at spending money that's going to come from where?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Going to come from taxpayers. And that's right now, like I said, we're not looking at increasing taxes. So that money is coming out of other departments, coming from other places, savings, or increased upticks in the economy, right?
You know what? Somebody here asked me to ask you this. I don't think this is political, but said, please ask Beth Chang what she thinks of these 90-day hires.
Yeah.
I must tell you that I've changed my mind a little bit about them. I always thought it was a ridiculous double dipping,
right.
That people were getting paid that didn't deserve it. And now I'm thinking, wait a minute, a lot of these people do deserve it because they have expertise. And in actual fact, if I'm a penny pincher, these kind of hires are actually saving the taxpayer a little bit of money.
They can be because they're not included in the civil service system. But my concern with 90-day hires is actually, I think it's a workaround for what the civil service system is. I think Republicans are always saying there's a problem with government. There's a problem with government.
Right.
It's the civil service system.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? It's
Right.
I have no gripe against the guy or the gal that's doing it.
No, not
I have
at all.
a gripe that they can.
Well, yeah, and part
in
of the,
some areas,
right? And part of the problem is really just even how long it takes to hire through civil service. That's what the departments are trying to get around. How hard it is to hire. And so we have these positions sitting on the books, collecting money, going into random pots of money that the departments can use however they want, and then they use these 90-day hires.
It seems
as
to
a
me.
backdoor.
It seems to me that one of the things that you've mentioned in the past, a way to reach across the table, in many respects, is to say to somebody, "Look, I resent the opportunity for people to bang the system.
Right.
But if we fix the system so it can't be banged, we're better off."
Yeah, why can't we just fix the system?
Yeah,
That's always been my problem. Why
yeah.
find a loophole? Just fix the system.
Are there any specific examples? One of that always has bothered me is that I know that this goes up every year, and there's something that comes up every year, and for some reason, whether it's union pressure or whatever, falls by the wayside. And that is, if I am a taxpayer and I am paying somebody that's getting unemployment or food or whatever, and they're using my money to buy drugs, I got an issue. How come there is not drug testing on welfare recipients?
Yeah, it does come up every year. I don't think it's unions. One of the things, I don't think there's ever been a very good argument made that we would find enough fraud. Just because drug tests are administering the drug tests on a regular basis, you're not going to catch a lot of drugs if you're bringing somebody in every 6 months. So I think the feeling in general is it's money that we're spending on a program that's probably not going to catch fraud. I think we do all know there's a problem.
But in the private sector, it's very clear. If you're subject to a random drug test, if you're dirty, you're gone.
Yes, and maybe making sure it's randomized. Maybe it's more just, I think the vast number of people we have on welfare. In a small company, you can do that. With the number of people that we have that would have to go through this program, we haven't figured out how to fund that.
Okay, now one other thing before we run out of time, which I think is important. We're looking at a prison maybe being constructed on a neighbor island at a huge ticket.
Yes.
There's some that immediately say no.
Right.
But there are also some that say, you know what? We need this. We need to incarcerate bad people, and we need to keep the money it costs to incarcerate people in our economy. Where is the caucus going on building prisons for inmates to keep them in Hawaii?
I think keeping them in Hawaii is a good idea. Keeping the money in Hawaii is a good idea. The cost of projects in general is very high, higher than it should be. I think that's what the caucus would like to see us address, is why is procurement costing so much more than if the private sector did
Well,
it?
listen, that's the other side of it. My final question today, a lot of people have seen this. There is a whole bunch of investigative stuff going on the rail companies.
Yeah.
There's offices being, invaded and raided and everything else. This is a quintessential example of somebody better be watching this thing because it looks like it's bleeding money already.
Yes. Yeah. And we need to be. There needs to be way more accountability than there is.
There is, I know, and it's very difficult, isn't it? I think almost all of us misunderstand who's at the end of the line with this. Is it the city or is it the state? Well, eventually at the end of the day, it's the state, isn't it?
Yes.
How much concern on the floor? What is being done to cocoon the state from liability, if anything, can be done?
I don't think there's a lot that can be done. I think at the end of the day, it's up to the governor and the mayor to really rein in their departments and make sure that they're keeping a good eye on this.
If we think that we're doing well with that, all we have to do is look at the organizations on the neighbor islands that are saying, we want the TAT money.
Oh, yeah.
Give us the money, and that would mean the legislature's got to do what? Increase?
If we lose TAT, there's a lot more money to increase. Yeah.
What's happening on the Beth Fukumoto Chang docket this week? What's in your heart?
So Thursday is going to be a lateral deadline, which means that any bill has to be moving to its final committee. So people should be watching that on Thursday and Friday. There's going to be a lot of floor votes.
So if somebody wants to get input, now's the time.
Now is the time.
Much more friendly, isn't it? You just type in a couple of keywords and bills relating to boom, and up they come, right?
Yep, and Finance Committee should be starting this week as well.
Okay, so that's the deal, Wagon Wheel. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
When we come back, prosecuting attorney Keith Kaneshiro is going to talk story with us. They've got a new deal about homelessness in the city, and that is mobile courts. Get out in the street. Well, it's the prosecutors that got to go prosecute. And based on the laws that we got on homelessness, they're busy. And we speak about being busy. Beth Fukumoto Chang is going to be busy this week. And next week, we're going to talk about what fell through the cracks on Thursday.